Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. Today, I'm stepping outside of our normal guest profile of coaches, L&D professionals, CHROs, and business leaders. And I have actually been working on expanding a range of different people's personal stories of adaptation and life. In fact, from Wayne's story of living with early onset Parkinson's to Ashley's emotional story about raising 3 kids while dealing with the unexpected loss of her husband. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to actually share my guest for today is Keith Day. He's known as the Neuropathy Warrior. Now, you might be thinking, what is neuropathy and what does it have to do with adaptability and the future of work? Well, Keith's remarkable journey through battling and triumphanting, cool, there's a tricky word, over neuropathy has not only reshaped his life, but also inspired countless others facing similar challenges. His story is a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit, of resilience, and making him a real beacon of hope in the healthcare industry for providers, patients, and all that are striving to turn adversity into strength. So join us as Keith illuminates the path to resilience, to health, to hope, and offering some insights that promise to empower and uplift us all. So welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much.
So can you first tell us, what is neuropathy?
Well, neuropathy is a disorder created by lack of blood flow through the microvascular blood capillaries to what we call our sensory nerve fibers. Our sensory nerve fibers are the longest nerves in our body, and they're the great communicators of blood flow, muscle movement, coordination. They help you sense hot and cold, pain and numbness. They help you understand sharp and dull. And they go from the tip of your toes across the bottom of your feet, up the back of your legs, through your spinal column, and boom, right into the back of your brainstem. And they communicate to your brain in a nanosecond by vibration. And they communicate all the things I've just said. And you also have the same sensory nerves in the tips of your finger. And they go all the way down through the elbow and arm, all the way into the back of the brain and do the same thing. This is an example of the sensory nerve fibers communicating coordination, or what's called proprioception, eye-hand coordination. This is the nerve fibers communicating to my brain, my fingers are snapping. When someone has neuropathy to a certain level in their hands, they can no longer snap their fingers. They have to look at their fingers and they have to say in their mind, snap my finger. And then when it gets too far progressed, they can't do that at all. They can't button a shirt, tie their shoes, snap a bra, or even use utensils to feed themselves. In the feet, it can be so devastating that they lose the flexibility in their toes, and then they have what's called a hyponeuropathy, which is no pain, but they lose balance, they lose muscle strength, they get edema, they develop what's called neuropathy itch, and then they begin to fall down, and it only takes one fall to hit the head, and they pass away, or they have devastating circumstances. The other kind is all pain, where they get sharp shooting pains in their feet and their toes. They get cramping like frozen toes. They get freezing, they get burning, they get sheet feet, which is hypersensitivity, where the covers can't even be on their bare toes at night because it's too painful. And all of these things erode their quality of life because they don't want to move because it hurts. They don't want to fall down. They're afraid of getting hurt, so they become sedentary. Then they become depressed, which is the unspoken evil symptom of neuropathy that most providers don't educate patients about, is the severe amount of depression. Because neuropathy doesn't just affect the person who's sick, it affects everyone who loves that person, because the person, when they have neuropathy at certain stages, withdraws from their social circles, from their activities. They become sedentary. And when we become sedentary, then we wave the white flag of surrender, because everything bad happens when you're sedentary. So neuropathy starts with a lack of blood flow through the microvascular blood capillaries, 10 times smaller than a strand of hair. And those microvascular blood capillaries deliver red blood cells, oxygen, nutrients and antioxidants to the sensory nerve fibers because they're living, breathing fibers deep in our body. They're living and breathing. And blood flow is the river of life. If you don't have any blood flow, where are you? You're dead. You're in trouble, right? And so when these microvascular blood capillaries begin to become what's called vasoconstricted, it's because of swelling. And no blood can flow to the nerve fiber, and the nerve fiber becomes sick and it dies without that blood flow. And when it dies, you have severe neuropathy that changes your entire life. I went from being a peak performance athlete to someone who traveled all over the United States as a world-class trainer in many industries to being in bed, struggling to go from my bed to my bathroom to my lazy boy chair without falling down. I had to have my feet massaged 3 times a day, and I begged my wife to cut my feet off. And it all happened in a New York minute of time in my life that devastated me because my quality of life was completely being destroyed, including my career. And then I had to be faced with this really scary thought that I was going to lose my independence. And I don't know about you or the people listening to us, but I don't know anyone who's going to throw the biggest party they've ever had the day they lose their independence. Everyone's afraid of that. And if they tell you they're not quite being honest. It's just something that happens, but no one's forward to it. And so this is what this disease is about. It's a lack of blood flow caused by chronic inflammatory diseases or food or diet or work environments or other diseases. There's over 100 causes of neuropathy. It can even be inherited. But the combination of lack of blood flow and chronic inflammatory increases is devastating to the body. And so what we've learned to do is increase blood flow and decrease inflammation. And there's tons of ways to do it. Technology standpoint to the simple things that God put on this earth.
It's amazing, isn't it? Just how we can go from a vision of our future that we had, you know, in our careers, in our professional lives, in our social lives, and something can happen and we need to respond and react to that. Our adaptation, do we cope and do we deal with it? Are we resilient and we tough it through? Do we transform and learn? And do we have hope where, there is a, you know, pathways and agency to adjusting? Do I adjust my environment, the people around me? Do I adjust myself? You mentioned many things there, you know, from our diet to all sorts of areas of dealing with it. So when that happened for you, and I guess other people, you know, things will happen to us unexpectedly, a health concern, whether it's health that comes along and slaps us in the face, or it's a bit of technology, or it's a statement from your boss or line manager. Things happen, right, in life. And we then go into a state of, well, why us? Fear, learning, and getting to a point where how do we transform that from happening to us to happening for us? So this challenge, I'm really interested, partly, to be honest, Keith, is my father suffers very badly from neuropathy in his feet. This has been brought about through some very severe cancer treatments. He had stage 4 lung cancer, went on immunotherapy, was only given 3 to 6 months, transformed his life from having a grapefruit-sized tumor in his right lung, with then showing in left lung and other parts, saying, okay, this is it, to now just looking like scar tissue. A radical transformation where we thought, you know, do we change the car for mum? Where's she going to live? All of those kinds of conversations to, bless him, he is now refitting the ensuite in their bathroom, but dealing with temperature issues, cold, inability to feel, and lots of things. So it affects all sorts of people in different ways. So I really want to know, you know, when these things happen, what can we do about it? Yes, your specialism of neuropathy. So I'd like to know more about that, but also in general, what some of the things that you were dealing with and you see within patients as they deal with a vision of themselves different than they perhaps thought before a condition like this happens.
Sure. First of all, I will tell you, I'm so happy to hear the success your father's had. Chemotherapy-induced neuropathy is the most uh, aggressive form of neuropathy there is. As a diabetic, your neuropathy will progress at this kind of a speed, if you can see my hands. But when you have chemotherapy-induced neuropathy, and 93% of all chemotherapy patients will acquire neuropathy before they're finished with the chemotherapy itself. It's the number one reason why chemotherapy patients stop going to their treatments is the neuropathy is so awful. Chemotherapy-induced neuropathy progresses and degenerates the body like this. It's the only induced form of neuropathy they can get in their hands and their feet simultaneously. And it's awful. So my heart breaks for your dad, but I'm happy to hear some of the things he's doing. So what do you do when you get neuropathy? Well, first of all, it's very difficult to understand what's happening. I was a road racer. I ran 5Ks and 10Ks. I played volleyball all over the country. I played basketball. I played tennis. I played every sport you can imagine. And one day at around 45 years old, I remember getting out of bed going, oh, this hurts. I feel stiff. I'm sore. And it hurt when I walked, and it kept getting worse. And I thought, as an athlete and everything I put my body through, that I just broke my body down. Wrong. Certain things that happen to the body are not anything to do with age, like numbness. You could be 90 years old, and if you have numb toes, there must be a reason for it. It's not about old age. Certain things about neuropathy, people go, oh, I'm just getting old. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And that's a dangerous way to think about it, because neuropathy will progress. It is degenerative and will not stop until you treat the cause. So, of course, when I started getting ill, I started going to doctors. Right? What do? Go to doctors. Well, that's when I learned truly that when doctors say they practice medicine, they really truly mean that, because no doctors could tell me what was going on. They would give me all this other kind of stuff, right? And they give me a pill. Well, I learned that pills don't treat the cause, they treat a symptom. And pills that treat symptoms have side effects. And then I had to take a pill to treat the side effect of the pill I'm taking to treat the symptom. And so I developed a theory that that's really called sick care. And you get into this vicious cycle. And pretty soon you went from 1 pill, 3 pill, 5 pill, 10 pills, and you're really sick. So one of the things you have to do is you got to find a provider that believes in healthcare. That's treating the cause of the problem. The other thing you have to do is you got to make sure that you are sick and tired of being sick. When I talk to people all over the United States about this, I tell them, before I get into my presentation, they're going to hear a lot of stuff from this guy with all this gray hair and everything else. And they're going to begin to think that what I'm having to say to them might be too good to be true. And their parents always told them, if it sounds too good, it probably is. And there must be a catch. So I'm going to tell those folks right up front that there is a catch with everything I say. And I ask them if they'd like to know the catch. And they all say, yes, of course. And I say, okay, are you ready? The catch is you and you and you and you and you. And here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you what you have to do. I'm going to tell you what you can do. I'm going to tell you where to go to do it. However, you have to do it. You must take an action. I can't do that for them. I can't go home with them at night and say, hey, Ross, did you do your treatment? Did you do your treatment? Did you ignore the beer that night? Did you skip your whiskey sour that night? You didn't eat potatoes, did you? Okay. You walked, you got your walk in, right? You got your blood flow going. See, I can't do that for everybody. Neither can you. They have to do it for themselves. So one of the first things is they got to understand that they don't want the life that neuropathy is going to deliver for them, which is shorten their quality of life and steal their independence. That's it. There's no question about it. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when. And that all depends on the quality of that person's health. Neuropathy, I'll give you an example. Osteoarthritis, a person doesn't feel pain in their knee, if they have it in their knee, until it is 50% manifested, until it has simmered and boiled in the joint for 50% of as bad as it's going to get. Then you feel pain. Neuropathy will simmer and boil in a person's body until it's 75% matured. And at that point, That's hard to defeat. That's hard to push back because the inflammation runs rampant. See, the chronic inflammation, which is the real monster of the disease, it's in your body from head to toe, completely systemic, even though it affects your hands, arms, feet, and legs. Neuropathy doesn't go above the knees and it doesn't go above the elbows. It's peripheral on the outside of the body. Yes, you can get mononeuropathy, that's sciatica or carpal tunnel. You can get autonomic neuropathy, that's the heart, and you get a pacemaker for that. Okay. But peripheral neuropathy is what we're talking about. And that does not go above the knees and does not go above the elbow. So you got to find a healthcare provider. Most providers are going to say, hey, let's put you on this medicine, this non-convulsant seizure medication. I won't talk about it, but they might have tried to put your dad on it. And that medicine has horrible side effects. And it doesn't stop the progression of disease. It just stops the brain from talking to the sensory nerve fibers. The disease marches on and gets worse. You just can't tell. And it steals your short-term memory. All terrible stuff. The way to get out of pain, the way to go is you have to understand that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a freight train. Doctors will say, Ross, you've got neuropathy, take this pill, learn to live with it, nothing can be done. That destroys the hope of the patient, and it's wrong. The truth is, neuropathy is caused by vasoconstricted blood vessels that can't get blood to go to the nerve. That vasoconstriction cause is swelling that comes from chronic low-level inflammation. Here's the secret sauce, and understand this. What is swollen can be treated, and it unswells again, and blood flows. Our body is a marvelous, greatest IT machine in the world. It makes angiogenesis all the time. Our body manufactures new microvascular blood capillaries every day. Chronic low-level inflammation is its mortal enemy and destroys them before they can get going. But if we can create enough blood flow, increase our blood flow, we can overwhelm the inflammation and wash it away. See, blood flow does two things. One, deliver red blood cells, oxygen, nutrients, and antioxidants. But the second thing, the rest of the story it does, is it washes away the toxins, the free radicals, and the waste that cause disease. When you increase blood flow, you are washing away some of that inflammation out of your body. Then you need to manage the illness by what you eat. We eat inflammation, we drink inflammation, we breathe inflammation, we wear inflammation. Give you an example. We breathe three ways: mouth, nose, and skin. And I've treated some patients. Well, I haven't treated them. I'm not a doctor. I'm a patient educator. I'm not a doctor. But I've consulted with them and got them treatment because they had terrible neuropathy. No one could figure out how they got the neuropathy. Well, they had paint under their cuticles of their nails. And I said, when you paint, do you cover up your arms? Oh no, that would be too girly. That'd be too sissy. That'd be too weak. And I'm a third generation painter. My grandfather would be mad at me if I covered my arms when I'm painting. I said, okay, how much paint do you get on them? Well, sometimes quite a bit. Okay, when do you clean it off? Well, sometimes I'm tired when I go home. I go to sleep with it and I cover it maybe when I'm done with the job. Here's the thing: paint has toxins in it that destroys our blood flow because the paint toxins increase our chronic low-level inflammation. And so it only takes 3 minutes, 1, 2, 3 minutes for toxins on our skin to get into our bloodstream. The man was poisoning himself from the outside in, giving himself neuropathy because he didn't want to cover his hands or his arms when painting because he thought he was lesser of a worker, lesser of a man, because he would cover himself up. It's terrible. So you got to manage it and understand what you can eat. I'm not a big diet fan. Moderation's key in all things. But you also have to understand things you need to do, like walking and like assisted stretching and a few things like this. And going and getting the right treatment, which is healthcare, treating the cause. There are providers all over the world who understand how to increase blood flow and decrease inflammation. It's not rocket science. And that's the key. But you have to understand there's no cure for neuropathy. And if you get better and you feel better and you quit going or you quit your treatments, it's going to come back with a vengeance. So once you get to a certain level in your life, you must always have a maintenance program. It's not hard. It's not complicated, but that's where the catch is. They got to want to get better and they got to stay focused on getting better. It's a lifelong life adjustment for doing this.
And when it came to your impact yourself, where you said, very active, very sporty, had a particular professional career that shifted, how did that affect you mentally and evolved your own role? And what have you seen in others as they've transitioned through a challenge, albeit specialism, neuropathy, diabetes, those areas, a challenge and its impact on their work? And how does they adapt, and B, how can employers better understand and adapt to employees that face these kind of challenges?
Well, I'll never forget, I worked for this one company for a number of years, and was their top revenue producer, which in the corporate world, that's really what matters, right? Can you produce revenue? And I thought I was really good friends with them, having stayed at their cabins and other things. And I remember explaining to them I couldn't get on the plane because when you fly with neuropathy, the compression of the cabin causes an intense swelling. And the more swelling you have in your legs, the more pain you have. Even if you wear compression socks, eventually they don't work or they stop working. And I remember his comment to me was, if you can't get on this plane, you don't work here anymore. I was devastated because I realized then it was about the dollars I bring them. There was no relationship. There was no respect. There was no admiration for the quality of my work or what I did. And it was all gone in a New York minute. And a lot of people don't understand how someone like me or someone who's afflicted like I am, how they feel with neuropathy. They think it's in our head. They think we might be hypochondriac. I remember one time I was given a speech at a restaurant dinner talk where I provided a free meal and I had 100 people there. And in the back of the room, a lady that was kind of in a wheelchair, she was sitting there and she was bawling while I was telling my story. And I stopped and I said, "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" She just shook her head like this. And finally, across the table was a couple younger ladies, and it turned out to be her daughters, adult daughters. And one of them said, "It's my fault. She's crying. I'm so sorry." And I said, "Okay, well, is she going to be okay?" And the lady shook her head, yes. And the daughter said, "Let me explain. For years, my mother's been telling my sister and how bad she's been hurting and how bad she feels and how she can't sleep at night because the pain is so bad and how many times she's fallen. And we didn't believe her. And after hearing your story and seeing all these people, I leaned forward and told my mother, I believe you, and I'm sorry I didn't." And it caused my mom to lose her emotions. That's why I say neuropathy affects not just the person who's sick, but everyone who loves that person. Because there comes a time in our life, if we don't take care of it, that we need assistance and help. Today, I'm in remission. I can walk 5 miles a day without any pain. I cannot get on a table and raise my hands and V for victory and shout hallelujah, amen, and right on, I'm cured, because there is no cure. And I still do have occasional symptoms that flare up, but I know how to manage them. I know how to take care of it. And my balance has improved. My strength has improved. So the hope is this disease is caused by chronic low-level inflammation that causes swelling. Treat the cause, increase blood, decrease chronic inflammation through nutrition, through exercise, through lifestyle changes, and you can stop the progress and sometimes reverse a little bit of the damage. And you can now have control of your life. Depression set in with me, Ross. Depression. Unbelievable. I was giving up. I was sedentary, never been sedentary a day in my life. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be around anybody. I was irritable. I was barking at my wife all the time. She was doing everything she could do for me. Literally. The best thing, she was not cut my feet off when I begged her 2, 3 times a day. I had to hit rock bottom, and I think so do other people. Not everyone. Maybe some are more mentally stronger than I was at the time. But finally, it just got so bad, and I wasn't prepared financially for this devastation, that I just had to grab my boots by the bootstraps, and I just had to say, enough's enough. I had to say I'm sick and tired of being sick, and I went on this mission to find help, and it was hard. It was difficult. Uh, Again, so many standard providers wanted to give me a pill. I believe, and I'm speaking only about the United States, but I believe the American medical standard of care is eroded and decayed to a one-word definition: a pill. They give you a pill for everything. And all that does is sick care. It doesn't treat the problem. So to try and find that provider who wants to give healthcare and treat the cause, that's really important to begin with.
Yeah.
And there's hope, there's light at the end of this tunnel.
It's a systemic challenge. I mean, we're part of an organization called Startup Health. And so for those in the US might be familiar with something called Y Combinator. They invest in startups. It's like that for health companies, and they orbit around 11 health moonshots. And this is about transforming healthcare, as you say, from sick care to healthcare.
Yeah.
And there's lots and lots of system change required, and the inertia of that immune system of the corporate system of, the answer is a pill. The answer is this form. The answer is what we've done before, is a challenge that exists in so many industries of, because it's been done that way before, the changes required to look at something new is difficult. Plus, it makes economic value, more money, more sales, to keep people sick than it does healthy. And equally, you
Very
said
well
it
said.
yourself, as people, there's a difference between a painkiller and a vitamin, right? And when we take it, do we need a burning platform, it's so bad to get off it, versus a burning ambition? That's true of these things. It needs to be so bad before, yeah, okay, I'll do something about it. So we're compounding the effect of human nature to wait till it's really bad, not complain, and whatever it may be there, compounded with an economic system that rewards sickness, not health. So that's the environment that sits. Now, as leaders, as people who employ others that are listening here, how can they better respond? You talked about how debilitating it was for your depression, your mental health, to go from top performer to then, hey, if you can't do this, you haven't got a job, Keith. How can, not from the healthcare side, but from the work side, how can work environments better support people through transitions of health challenges? What does that look like in reality? Can they, or are they just not built in the way that they can do it?
No, I think they can, absolutely. I think it's a marvelous question, and I think that first, I think there has to be a little bit of empathy, not sympathy. Empathy, big difference. And I think that you have to be in a situation where you're provided with opportunities. If you have a desk job, for say, that you are able to get up and move a little bit and walk around. So I like the idea of these organizations that have these desks that either fold down and you sit at it, or it folds up and you can stand up on it. That's a big deal, because see, when we're standing up, all humans have a secret, invisible ally with blood flow. It's called gravity. Gravity makes the blood flow. And if you think about where neuropathy is really the worst, it's in the toes, which are the furthest away from what? The heart. So it's got to pump that blood all the way down there, right? And that's why when most neuropathy patients have increased pain at nighttime, it's because they get in bed. There's no more gravity. And so there's lesser blood flow to these toes, which increases pain. So in the work environment, getting up and standing, being able to move, maybe even having to change a position within a company would help, where you got more movement. Walking increases blood flow, not permanently, but temporarily it does, and that allieves pain. Also, making sure that they have the right ergonomical type of chairs and things, or limiting their flights in this kind of a manner. Maybe not the number of flights they have to do for the business, but get away from all of the stops. In other words, fly nonstop if you can. Far better with neuropathy to fly nonstop than it is to get the big discounts by stopping 3 or 4 times and taking the crummy flight to save money. Doesn't help anyone with neuropathy. It makes it way worse. So the nonstop is a much better deal. And then the same thing with if they're driving delivery trucks or things like that, just letting them have those 10-minute breaks to take a delivery, stop, walk for a little bit, take the leg. When I was a young man, a young kid, a toddler, no, older, my grandfather always called me little man. And he lived right on the mighty Columbia River in the state of Washington, which is one of the 5 major rivers of the world. And we would always go fishing. And I was wanting him to get out and go fishing with me early in the mornings. And he'd always say, little man, Papa's got to get the blood flowing to his feet first. Well, I think back now. And, a lot of people had neuropathy back then, our grandparents, they thought it was arthritis. It's a cousin neuropathy. But, that's so true. I got to get my blood flowing first. The other things are just simply understanding that sometimes, the employee's not going to bring the same energy because one of the biggest problems with neuropathy is lack of sleep. You can't go to sleep when you're hurting, or it wakes you up when you go to sleep. That's one of the reasons why they prescribe these heavy non-convulsion, all the energy. And I think that corporate world of produce, everyone has a dollar sign on their back, where's the revenue, all that kind of stuff. I think some of that's going to have to change. And I have seen people, patients, and I've counseled with them that their job was just so demanding and so difficult for them to do with their stages of neuropathy. They were in a medium stage, that I told them they should try and take time and look to change positions. And they did that and changed companies. The other thing is, and I know there's a big debate about, is it more productive to be remote, more productive to be in the office? And some companies say you're coming back, and some people, but neuropathy really is a much easier managed if you can be a remote worker, and work remotely, like you and I do sometimes, maybe all the time. We are then able to really take care of it. You need to focus on it. It needs your attention, but you can get in a routine, and getting in the right routine really makes a big difference too. Like, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you shower, you shampoo your hair, you make your bed, you eat breakfast. You got to get into some kind of routine like that.
Yeah. I like the, get the blood flowing, and it reminds me of the mantra of movement is medicine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm standing here at my stand-up desk. I mean, in fact, I'm just going to share with you a picture of my setup, because I've never share it or show people. But you mentioned the type of desk that means you can sit down or stand up, and I invested in one about 4 years ago, and I make sure that each day I've got some time standing. And in fact, this will be my 3rd hour today of standing. And I'm all the subtle little movements, all the little parts that, when I'm standing, I'm not stationary. I'm looking at a little stretch, a little movement, a little balance onto the foot in different ways. So that movement is medicine, I think, is really important. And you talked then also about the transition for somebody that when they're faced with a condition that doesn't allow them to perform how they were performing before, what adaptations in their tasks, in their role, in their environment can they and their organization make? So we reduce the complete redundancies, and we look for employee mobility. We look for how can we make task redundancies, not people redundancies? How can we shift them into new areas of opportunity? Because the areas of the fullness of people that if we can connect in a different way, if we see them in a new way and give them, like you said, hope, being able to say, here's a vision, here's some strategies and pathways to achieve it, and here's the agency and skills to follow those pathways and strategy, then we have hope, right? And so I think it's fascinating when we go into depth of a particular condition, and I've got a couple more questions on that before we wrap it out. And it's, how common is this? How would people know before 75% of pain? What can we do that treats it, is one question. The other thought I had was, I've recently watched 2 things. One was this You Are What You Eat series on Netflix, 4-parter, and they were looking at a healthy omnivore diet and a healthy vegan diet. And they were looking at all sorts of functions, brain function, telomeres for your longevity on your epigenome, right through to your sexual kind of aspects of blood flow in the genitals. So on Game Changers documentary back in 2018, they did it for men, and they were looking at blood flow around nighttime erections linked to a vegan diet versus a meat diet. And it was hundreds of % more blood flow on a plant-based diet than it was on a meat-based diet. And they wanted to try and do the same in women. And so they were using heat cameras. This was Stanford University and various things looking at it to see the impact of blood flow. So I'm thinking about blood flow from, as you mentioned, being intentional with the food that doesn't impact inflammation, increases blood flow. I'm going to take a pause there. So I gave you two kind of things, one about diet and the other one just looking at how organizations shift around task restructures and employee mobility versus, hey, Keith, you can't get on a plane, so you're no good anymore.
Right. Well, first of all, let's talk about, use the word in intentions or intentional, which I think is very important here. And I think one of the keys that I try and get people motivated to do or inspire them to do is to be proactive. And you asked, how is it that you can maybe detect neuropathy before it gets 75% manifested within your body? And here's one of the ways. I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but one of the ways is understanding. I believe that the most knowledgeable and educational patient will make the best decisions about their health care. And so one of the keys I try to do as the Neuropathy Warrior is provide education like this. If you're diabetic, there are 70 million people in America alone with diabetic neuropathy. Most medical scientific white papers say that diabetics, 40, 50, 60% of all diabetics will get neuropathy. I happen to think that's closer to 100% because of their nutrition. But if you are told you're pre-diabetic, you want to do everything in the whole world to never become a diabetic. People think, oh, pre-diabetic. See, Ross, diabetes in this world is an epidemic that no one calls it an epidemic, because just in America alone, we create 1.6 million more diabetics in this world every year. That's not an epidemic. Why do we do that? Diet, society of convenience, the drive-up window, DoorDash, Grubhub, all those deliver your meal to the door. And one other issue when it comes to nutrition. One of my heroes, a great man named Jack LaLanne, was a doctor of chiropractic medicine. Jack LaLanne had the first reality TV show in American television history. He's the reason kids like me in elementary in the 60s were doing calisthenics. He always, and Dr. Jack LaLanne invented juicing and the world's first juicer. And his saying was, if it's man-made, don't eat it. Over-processed foods, which is why I have a little bit of an issue with everything plant-based versus everything carnivorous or meat-based, because so much of the stuff plant-based now is being over-processed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it
Okay?
should be a raw ingredient, right?
Yeah, and then there's this horrible thing called gluten. Gluten, oh my gosh. Gluten causes so much chronic low-level inflammation in a person's body. It's incredible, but it's not number one. The number one biggest cause is processed sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
Sugar is unbelievable and makes us all so sick. Stevia from a plant. Stevia in the raw is one of the best sweeteners there is. But at any rate, so
we're talking about Keith, and 20% of the population, right? Diabetes, you mentioned 70 million. What's the population of the US at the moment? 300, 330. And then the link of that and neuropathy. So this is likely to, if you employ people, it will be affecting a number of the people. And
absolutely.
so how do we put those systems? And I encourage all of you who are listening to think about, it is often the unseen and the unknown that is the most damaging. When we can see things, we're aware of it and we can then deal with it. And for this, perhaps it might be unseen, unspoken about, untalked about, maybe shamed, don't want to share. and just living with it blindly until the point it becomes debilitating, until the point I can no longer function. And then, my
Right.
employer has a tough decision to make, versus in these areas of a compassionate organization, an organization with empathy that knows we're going to be facing so many transformations and change. It's going to be so many restructures. The amount of just transitions is going to be phenomenal. How we can put in and encourage us to think about the whole human, in all of their aspects of their health, their mental health, and these conditions is an opportunity. So I'll let you respond to that. And then I've got a final question for you, Keith, as we close out the show.
I think health screenings on a quarterly basis that are provided where professionals come to the corporate office or come to the employer's business. Health screenings are so big, and I think the employer has got to communicate very precisely with all clarity to the employee that the health screenings are to help them with their health. A healthier employee or the healthiest employee are the best employees. No question about it. The other thing is, I think employers have to understand the importance and the devastation that poorest of the health employees and safety issues impact the employer's bottom line significantly. And they need to understand and grasp that. So they have proper safety protocols. For example, we in the clinic that I'm consulting in Alabama, we have a patient who came in and they fell. They fell off a ladder at work that they were required to get on. Well, they fell because they already have a medium stage of neuropathy where they have lost some of their balance, but didn't want to disclose it to their employer. Now, see, if they had told the employer had a health screening and they felt comfortable the employer would understand, they could have prevented that fall. He could have had someone else get on that ladder, right? You follow me? And then there's part of those health screenings. What is wrong with bringing in a nutritionist or a microcell biologist to speak to your group once every quarter about the healthy side of what God's given us on this earth? We have everything on this earth to be healthy. Like you said, eating, I think they call it the caveman diet or something, eating everything kind of raw, right? The raw vegetables, not processed. I remember my grandfather's orchard. We picked the apple off, put the garden hose over it, cleaned it off, and we had it. It was that snack, right? It's not that way anymore.
No. And Keith, it comes back to something you said at the very beginning. There's a catch.
Yes.
You have to do it. We've known for years smoking kills. We've known what a healthy diet looks like, yet we don't bloody do it. We wait until we're so sick and then say, give me a pill. So there's always this challenge of a society that is connected to the activity of least resistance until it's too late. The naivety of youth, all of these things that, well, that doesn't matter because of X, Y, Z, to being intentional or proactive. And I think this is an opportunity for the employers of record, the employers of, the future to connect with humans at a human level of their wellness. If we're going to be living longer and living a healthy health span, not just a lifespan, the employers that get behind this have a huge opportunity of connection, of loyalty, of talent in hidden areas. I'm excited by bringing awareness to this subject and topic, Keith, by your activity to think about this from a new perspective, a new angle, to help us adapt our own personal behavior and thought versus pill fix me or won't fix me, to taking control and accountability of ourselves, of our own health in our education.
All of it. Everything you said is 100% correct. Everything.
The question I ask Keith every guest, so I've got 120 of these question responses to this, and one day it's going to make an interesting article or book, and it's linked about curiosity, and curiosity being a key component of our adaptation and what we want to change and how we learn. And the question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
The last time I did something for the first time would have been I tried some new food I've always grown up, and I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so I grew up in a family of meat and potatoes. So I tried some vegan-based food because I had a friend that's vegan, and I've never really been into that. And it was different flavors of tofu and some other things that they were putting off as parquet or fake type of chicken wings, and then a sandwich that looked like a McDonald's Big Mac and tasted like a McDonald's Big Mac. And I never thought in my whole life I would do that. And I enjoyed it. I liked it a great deal. My wife couldn't partake because she has a gluten and a soy allergy. But I now want to go back and have this Big Mac attack, they call it. It was delicious. It was filling. Everything was vegan. The cheese, everything. It was just delicious. And the and what they had called their chicken wings was texture, and everything was delicious. I couldn't believe it. They were boneless, of course, but I never thought I would do that ever.
It's
And
interesting. I was in November, I was in Malibu at a conference, and they had cell-based lab-grown salmon. And there's lots of these pockets of, the balance between processing it from something else, soy, mushrooms, different things, to put it into
Right.
then replicate like a Beyond Meat burger or the meat. And another way is doing it without the need of agriculture and, 1,000 gallons of water, acres of stuff, a 25-to-1 ratio of feed that we need to do to get just 1 kilo of meat, of beef, to then what if we grew it in a lab? And it was interesting because I've been a vegan, Keith, for 8 years, and I didn't actually want to try the salmon. And it was really interesting. I was analyzing myself of, well, why is that? I've never particularly liked fish anyway. I didn't eat a lot of fish. It wasn't the reason, everyone has different reasons of why they might make certain choices in life. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Where is what we expect, what we've done before? We try something new. Does that say, don't do it again, or I want to explore more? And
I
that's
was
part of the
completely
tapestry,
blown
isn't
away.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was completely blown away and shocked. And it was like, I was nervous about texture. I was nervous about
Yeah.
taste. And all of that was created right here.
Yep.
And it was all wrong,
Yeah.
wrong, right? Of course, the worst neighborhood to live in is the one between our ears, right?
You're absolutely right. And for ideas to live in there rent-free, they're
Yeah,
not providing their worth and their value,
yeah,
and a
yeah.
perspective of something can be shattered with new experiences and new data if we're open-minded enough to try the other neighborhood or the other fence
That's
of those things. It's been an
very well
absolute
said.
pleasure to get to know you and share your story, Keith. If people want to reach out, they've got connections, be that in healthcare or any other areas, Keith, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Just Google neuropathywarrior.com. That site is should be up and finished in probably by tomorrow morning. We had one
Great.
up, we took it down, and we've added a whole more turbo drive to it,
Lovely.
sort of more energy to it. So neuropathywarrior.com, and this is my passion, Ross.
Love it.
This is not a job to me. This is my crusade. This is my mission, to help and educate and inspire other people who are sick like this, because it's a devastating disease.
Yeah. Bring hope, help
Absolutely.
with resilience, and give those insights to empower and to uplift. Thank you. And I look
Thank you
forward
very much.
to sharing this with my pops. Is going to be
Wonderful.
blown away that I've got this one. So the world shows up in interesting ways. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and best wishes to you and your family and your father. Thank you.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQ Me assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams, and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.